Hey, everybody.
Hey, what's happening?
Welcome back. Our last 4 o'clock show. We're going to go back to 7 o'clock next week because we're shooting our last night of Archery League.
We are.
So next week and from then on until further notice, we'll be back on at 7 o'clock.
That's right. Let's do our usual stuff.
Do some sharing here, and we will get on with tonight's show. Our special guest is sitting in the wings, anxiously awaiting.
Yeah, he is. All right.
So
here we go.
We'll get rocking here in just 1 second. And I'll take care of this over here.
Okay. Start the process. Here we go.
Okay, you let me know when you're ready, Dan.
I will.
we go through this every week, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Seems like. For some reason, you got more to share than I do. Actually, I can take care of a couple of them by actually doing some work ahead of time. And right now, before we get started, we do have a live poll running on the stream tonight. And I just published it, so there it is. It's up and running. You should see it on your page. Are you planting food plots this year? Yes or no? That's all we want to know tonight. So you kind of see where we're going with the show tonight. You'd be able to.
It's about that time anyways.
It is. It is getting very, very close. I know we're doing some work down in Indiana, getting ready, and I'm going to be gone again for a weekend in April, and hopefully getting things situated to do just that. So,
sweet. You know, it's gotta be pretty exciting.
I'm pumped. Once again, folks, as always, we've got Hunter's Blend Coffee here, one of our supporters here at the Up North Journal. If you go over to their webpage, huntersblendcoffee.com, and use the UNJ promo code, just type in all capital letters UNJ, you'll get 10% off your order of Hunter's Blend Coffee. So make sure you get some. It's good
All right,
stuff.
I don't have to do that one this week, so okay, let's do it.
All right, you ready?
I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
You're ready as you'll ever be. Okay. So he says.
Right.
All right, here we go. Stand by. And in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to another episode of the Up North Journal podcast, everybody. I'm host Mike Adams, sitting in the cabin tonight on a pretty warm weekend here in Michigan.
Finally.
Yeah. Did you get outside?
You know what? I got outside.
What'd you do fun? Anything?
Oh.
I know. I saw the video.
I had to do it. I had to get that coalition crossbow out and put it together and shoot it. And I tell you what, pretty excited.
Good deal.
It's first of all, it was warm enough to actually sit outside, which was kind of nice.
Right.
But then it was just good to shoot out back. Shooting the PSE coalition is what I was shooting today, and but yeah, it's exciting. I'm glad to be able to get outside and do some shooting. And I see you took the Evolve.
Took my 28 over. Yeah, took the new 28 over to Jim Beasley over at Spot Shooter Archery, getting that set up for hunting season, hopefully for turkey, and hopefully that'll all work out. Ron Moses says we got a little bit of low audio. I'll bump it here just a little bit. Hopefully that'll work for you.
Right.
And we'll go from there. So I always love you guys' feedback and letting us know what's going on the other end. Because sometimes the computers don't play nice.
Right. And we had that discussion actually just before we went on air about being very light in the room because of the time change.
Right. Yep.
You know?
Yep. Had to change some things in here, some settings anyway. So
right. So you got the Evolve 28 over there and ready to go, ready to rock. Mm-hmm. We'll have to get those out and start shooting those.
But I got something else.
Well, you do?
Yeah.
Tell us.
I got it right here.
Are you looking at the centerfold of magazines?
Yeah, especially the one here in Gamekeepers. I got my new spring edition of Gamekeepers magazine here from Mossy Oak. And I'm flipping through this thing, and what do I see? The centerfold here, no staples in it.
Right.
That ad for Packer Maxx, none other than Packer Maxx, and we know this guy.
We know that guy. And you know what? If you kind of listened to last week's show and you kind of listened to this week, we had a special announcement coming up, and part of that announcement, I guess we should bring on Mr. Packer Maxx himself.
You think so?
I think so.
All right. Hey, Lincoln, what's going on? Lincoln Rohn.
Hey guys, what's happening tonight?
Just living life and loving life, man.
All right.
It's a beautiful weekend, man. Been out doing some grilling, shooting some bows, and reading the magazine. So you got a spread in Gamekeepers magazine. What's up with that?
Well, so we partnered with Gamekeeper and Mossy Oak Gamekeeper, and they have the heavy duty Packer Maxx is carrying the Gamekeeper logo and indicating that obviously Gamekeeper doesn't do any licensing agreements with products that they don't totally believe in, and they actually called me and wanted to do a licensing agreement. They recommend a cultipacker on every bag of seed that they sell, and they didn't have a cultipacker. So Bobby Cole called and said, which was obviously blew my mind, and said, "Hey man, let's team up." So we got the agreement put together, and so now we have the Gamekeeper edition. Heavy-duty Packer Maxx.
How's that feel when you get a call out of the blue of something such as a Gamekeeper's Mossy Oak to say, we like your product to the fact of we want to partner with you?
It was awesome. Obviously Mossy Oak is a household name. Gamekeeper, it's widely recognized throughout the industry, and they're a great group of guys and or people, and it's flattering, it really is, that they see this product and they go, man, this thing is awesome. Let's, and they actually have been using it, and their research and development guys have been using it, and they love it. So
that is awesome. That is congratulations, obviously, for having
that's huge, man.
Having them come out of the blue and say, "Hey, we want to partner with you." That feels pretty special, and for you, and
yeah, definitely.
Can I go back a little bit and kind of pick your brain as to what got you into the Packer Maxx? What drove you to get into something such as this?
Well, I had an opportunity. So Packer Maxx, the original owner of Packer Maxx, was a big supporter of our Michigan Deer Hunters Let Them Go and Let Them Go group, and he had actually donated a couple of these units. But even prior to that, about 7 years ago, so I see this a lot since I bought Packer Maxx. You see this graduation. People start doing food plots, and they start with a fence drag. Well, that's not quite getting it. So then they go to, trying to run the plot over with their quad tires. And then they go from that to a lawn roller. And then they go, well, the lawn roller's, working okay, but, take it to the next level and, and start looking at a Packer Maxx. Well, we did exactly that same thing. And I bought the Packer Maxx about 7 years ago. Of which I'm still using to this day. Still have the original bearings or bushings, everything. So I own the company now. I could have a brand new one, but I'm still running this one just to see how long it lasts. And we do 11 food plots every year, ranging from 4 acres down to an acre or a half of an acre. And we're still using that original one we bought 7 years ago. Still have the original bushings. It's just a solid piece of equipment. So at that point, I believed in this product. I can't even, I wouldn't plant a food plot without it now. And when I had the opportunity to buy the business, I jumped at the opportunity and started talking to them, and we got it worked out. And a year ago, in March, a year ago, I ended up buying the company. So here we are.
Here you are. And you just don't have one Packer Maxx. You've got a couple different models. Which models do you possess?
Yep. So we have the standard unit, which is a 4-foot standard unit, and that has a tubular frame. The 4-foot standard weighs about 360 pounds, filled with water. That's a really good unit for ATVs. If you're in a little more open terrain, you're not dragging around trees and whatnot. Then we have the heavy duty Gamekeeper series, which is got the 3/8" steel frame. It's like the Sherman tank version. It's just super heavy duty, and that's the Gamekeeper series, and that's a 4-foot unit, and with water that weighs about 400 pounds. And then we have an 8-foot version of the heavy duty, which is also Gamekeeper series. and that's basically 2 units side by side, and or 2 4-foot units side by side. A lot of guys, you can pull that with a quad or a side by side, but a lot of guys will use that with a tractor setup. And then we have a 4-foot 3-point series and a 8-foot 3-point.
Okay, so you kind of cover the gamut there of using it from an ATV to a tractor. And now you mentioned when you go to fill these, is water the preferred method to fill it with, or should you do sand, or what would you suggest?
Well, if it just kind of depends on the application. So if like ours, we ended up filling it with sand because we don't have to transport it from property to property. All of our plots are on our 160 up in Nuevo, so we filled it with sand. It weighs about 600 pounds with sand, and but you can't move it. I mean, you have to have it attached to something to move it. So it's really heavy. And so, a lot of guys, I've heard this at the show this weekend. I had several people stop and say, hey, I bought one of these last year. I love this thing. One guy actually filled it with beet juice. And I don't know what the ratio was, but it is, I think he said it was about 50 pounds heavier with beet juice. And a lot of guys will fill tractor tires with beet juice. So there's some options as far as what to fill it with, but if it needs to be portable and you want to take it from property to property, it's obviously best to fill it with water because then you can just simply drain it out. So there's an 1.5 inch fill spout.
Okay. Now, stepping back just a little bit, you talked about the reason you bought one back 7 years ago.
Yep.
And you talked about that process people go through of learning to do food plots. Talk a little bit about why a cultipacker, especially one like you've got, where guys are using something really in tight spots with ATV or small tractors. Explain why a cultipacker is important when you're doing food plots.
Well, the food plot or the cultipacker, farmers have been using these things for generations. I mean, that's no secret. It's you try to go buy one off a farmer that's been clearly been sitting in his fence row for 20 years. They won't sell them, and so number one, they're hard to come by. But the cultipacker is the very last step in the whole food plotting process. You can do everything right. You can do the soil test, lime your soil, fertilize, use top grade seed, do everything right. And if you fail to cultipack, your last step in the whole process, you're risking failure. And by cultipacking, it leaves grooves in the soil, and it channels that moisture to the bottom of the grooves and holds it there so that it doesn't run off, and it allows it to absorb into the soil. And by compacting it, you just naturally hold that moisture. Cultipackers aid in seed germination. They aid in seed to soil contact because you're pressing that seed down into the soil. So you get better germination, better moisture retention, and just a better overall food plot that's a lot more able to withstand periods of drought.
So then should to add the last couple steps that I have. So you've done the fertilizing and everything. Should you cultipack seed then cultipack again, or?
It depends on what you're planting. If you're planting like small seeds like clover or brassicas or chicory, you should pack first. You should till, pack, and then seed, and then pack again.
Okay.
If you're doing cereal grains, like rye, cereal rye, wheat, oats, even like radish seeds are a little bit bigger. You can, or soybeans, you can till your soil, broadcast your seed, and then pack.
Okay, and so the smaller seed needs to be closer to the top.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the smaller seed you want to plant in a firm seed bed.
That was my question because I hear it and it's like, okay, what's the last two steps? And I'm like, well, why not ask Lincoln?
There you go.
So a couple last summer we planted soybeans, and I think you have a picture of, I think, of one of my personal plots, but we we actually rolled the field. We tilled it, rolled it, and it had the nice channels in there. And then we broadcast soybeans, and then we rolled it again. And when that stuff came up, it looked, I mean, it's perfect rows. It looked just like we used a planter.
Really?
Yeah, it was really cool. It absolutely worked phenomenal. I can't believe how good it worked.
I tell you, that's the importance of having not only learning about this stuff, but having the right equipment to do it. I know you can have the, you can try and do the off in the what's the word I'm looking for, off site, in the food plots that are throw and grow basically. But if you have an opportunity to do it right, this is you got the pictures right here, Mike, that you showing that if you do it right and you have a green field like this, imagine what the deer think.
Right.
Oh, they killed that. There was, I don't even know how many thousands of pounds of forage we put out on that backfield. It's a 3.5 or 4 acre field, and I mean there was just thousands of pounds of forage. Plus, then after the forage was pretty much gone, by the end, December, muzzleload, and then they started getting into the turnips. The big round turnips. We had softball sized turnips. And they're digging those up all winter, and you got good winter carryover food. And that field looked like it was rototilled in February. So
I imagine you were able to sit back and watch a few deer in that field.
Well, something that you alluded to there. You're talking about those late season food plots like the turnips, and they're digging in there and getting those. When we get to like spring green up, you get that thaw and that freeze, thaw and freeze. Sometimes you've had a hard winter, those deer get locked out of certain things that they're able to get to, and then once they finally get a little bit of green up and the ground thaws, there's something there for them to get into versus going out in the forest trying to forage right before fawning season. Bucks are trying to replenish their fat stores from chasing. I mean, especially in an area where you got too many does and you've had trickle rut. It's just you and I have talked about this a lot with a lot of people, and it makes, when you food plot and you're able to get a good viable plot, it not only helps your hunting season, it helps that next spring green up season as well.
Yeah, for sure. And that's once they're able to if the snow is that deep and they're in, those turnips are preserved throughout the winter, and all of a sudden they're able to get access to them. So you have that, that when they really, really need it in the late spring, or early spring, late winter, that's when it is available yet. And it can be the difference between, losing a bunch of deer and having them make it through. So, and, healthily, plus you want them to, the better shape that these deer can stay in throughout the winter, and especially up north here. It's not as critical down in the south, but there's still periods of stress. But the better shape they can come out of winter, the better off. You're gonna have better antler growth. You're gonna have better, does that are healthy, with milk production and for their fawns, and so it's a win-win for the whole herd and for the hunter. So.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, let's go ahead and step outside and take our first break. We come back, we'll continue the conversation along these lines. So we're going to step outside. We'll be right back after this message.
Sounds good.
For those of you on the podcast, hang tight, and or on the live stream.
On the live stream, you got any questions for Lincoln himself?
Well, they're talking about a little bit of low audio on that side. I'm going to boost it just a little bit more here. I'm wondering what we got going tonight. Some people are saying that we got a little bit of low audio.
Coming from me, or doesn't?
No, off of our end here. Occasionally, it could be the stream popping a little bit. It's a little bit low, so we'll boost it just a little bit here. But let me save this off.
Yes, make sure you save it.
And Dana, can you check the poll? Do you see the poll up? What we're at right now?
Yeah.
How many people are food plotting this year?
Oh, right here.
Running that live look on that and see what we got. Alrighty.
I don't see the numbers to it.
Okay, here we go. Stand by and in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back. Sitting here still talking with Lincoln Rohn here from Packer Maxx, talking food plot and talking all good things from deer hunting. And actually the poll right now is 60-40. We got 60% of the people said no, that they're not going to do food plots this year for whatever reason, but 40% are. Lincoln, when you run across people out in the industry or out in the public or at shows, is that number kind of true? People you talk to, do you think, or?
Boy, I talk to, and it might be skewed a little bit because of what I'm selling. But I mean, even just out in normal conversations, food plots are super common today. I have a lot of hunters that are utilizing food plots, especially in Michigan. You can't with the baiting outlawed, Lower Peninsula wide. Guys that have been kind of banking on baiting for X amount of years. All of a sudden, they're going to have to get some groceries in the ground if they want to be successful, or at least have a decent hunt. So. But when I was at the show this past weekend in Gaylord, and probably about a third of the hunters the third of the people that I spoke with hadn't done food plots, but they were getting into it. So
okay,
just because of the baiting ban. So
that means you can teach an old dog new tricks.
Oh yeah, yep. Yeah, and I think they're going to be surprised at how effective food plots are. In comparison to baiting, because. It's just everybody, food plot or baiting is fine, and I have nothing against it whatsoever. I love feeding deer, but mature bucks are going to be way more apt to come into a food plot during daylight hours than they are a bait pile.
And plus, really, truthfully, a bait pile is just there for momentary, whereas the food plot will continue to grow.
Right.
And that's the thing about it, right? So you got continuous growth there, and it just, they come through, they nip it off, but it'll continue to grow and replenish itself,
Right. Yep.
So.
I love clover plots for for summertime forage, and clover plots are awesome, and there's not a better food plot to hunt over the first 3 weeks of the hunting season. I mean, clover is a huge draw. And,
okay. You said you like clover. We do have a question about planting, so we're going to throw one out at you.
Okay.
The question is, can you plant beans in the same area year after year, or do you have to rotate the crop? And if you do, what would you plant next?
So it's always best to rotate your crops, and we paid the price by not rotating out one of my fields out of turnips. We planted turnips about 3 years in a row. In the fourth year, we got a disease in the field with turnips, and then we had complete crop failure. So it is very important to rotate crops. So if you do beans in one field 1 year, so soybeans actually affix nitrogen into the soil. So the following year, it's number one, it's going to save you money on nitrogen costs. If you have a soil test, you'll be able to see that where your nitrogen levels are. But it's always good to follow up with like a cereal grain, like winter wheat and maybe cereal rye and oats mixed, because then those cereal grains will utilize that nitrogen that's fixed in the soil.
So basically, you're using a crop 1 year to bring it into the soil, and the next year you're using the crop that utilizes it to share it, and it extends the life and like you said, saves money on your nitrogen costs.
Well, and two, I would think if you've got multiple plots on your property, if you have that availability, you wouldn't plant them all in one thing. You'd make it to where you have different crops available, so you can rotate them and not really lose one crop. I mean, is that thinking right? Yeah,
for sure. And again, it kind of depends on your setup. So, on our property, we have, we kind of have our own spots, and so, because we have my sons and my nephews and my dad hunting the property, and so we kind of have our own spots, and it's like you make your spot better, and so like our hunting. Most of our hunting or kill plots, we call them, are in cereal grains. We'll do a blend of wheat, oats, cereal rye, topseed with red clover, and then we also maybe we'll throw in some brassicas or something, because then the cereal grains really keep up with the browse pressure.
Okay.
Whereas turnips, our big turnip field, once they start to diminish that, that top, the forage, you know, that to a certain degree it will replenish, but you know, after frost, it's done. So so the cereal grains are important, but yeah, you definitely want to rotate. We haven't had any issues. Typically, we don't rotate our crops out of our kill plots out of cereal grains, but then with that clover, top seeded, that clover starts to establish in the fall, and then in the spring that clover pops, and then you've got the rye and the wheat heads come up, and then you've got all that fresh, beautiful clover down below.
Yeah, and one thing I've learned about that, because I did that, would be 2 years ago. You could actually see the rye at the height that was, and you looked underneath, and you could see the clover there, and you kind of figured out that, okay, the deer have got to work their way through that.
Keeps them off of it until they really need it, until that grain on top is gone. We've done that for 3 or 4 years at our place and had great success with that.
Yeah, it works really good. And then what I've found too is the bucks, summertime, you get bachelor groups out there and they feel really secure, eating all that clover, with 3 or 4 foot high, rye and wheat heads, because they're kind of gives them some cover while they're in there eating. So, plus they're getting, highly nutritious clover. So it really works good. But yeah, definitely if you're planting, soybeans or anything like that, that's why, farmers will rotate corn and beans. And then, sometimes they'll throw in, a wheat field after a bean plant.
Gotcha.
Just because it's, like you said, it fixes that nitrogen. So wheat does really good after bean planting.
Well, talking about deer hunting, I mean, we're right in the middle of getting ready for this coming season. How did you do at your place this past season?
Well,
that was a heck of a giggle.
I didn't
that
have
almost
a great
scares
year.
me.
You're right. I didn't personally have a great year. We had a great year on the property. When I look back, I have to kind of keep things in perspective as to what our goals are sometimes, and I think a lot of people do have to do that. But I didn't shoot a buck in Michigan last year, but I passed up, at least probably 5 or 6 bucks this year that I probably would have shot not too long ago.
Right.
So. To say I had a bad year, it wasn't a bad year. We ended up shooting, I think we harvested 3 really nice 8 points off the property. 2 of them were 3-year-olds, and 1 was a 4-year-old. And then we did end up shooting, 3 does. We weren't going to shoot any because of the regulation package that had been implemented, but
right.
But as we suspected, it seemed like the doe pressure on the does was exactly the opposite of what in DNR's intention was, and so we ended up shooting a couple does because we had so many. So
right,
gotcha.
Yep, exactly. And it sounds like you just described hunter maturity to me.
Yep.
Like you said, a couple years ago he would have shot him. Now he's letting him go.
Well, I saw 13 different bucks in 2.5 days of hunting, and probably 4 or 5 of them in the past I would have smoked. I wouldn't have thought twice about it.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yep. Yeah, and I had in December this past year, I had 7 bucks in my food plot all at the same time. A couple 2-year-olds and a couple, and the rest were 1.5 old. So, in Newaygo County in December to see 7 bucks in one sit it's the same time is, used to be absolutely unheard of. We never saw bucks after gun season in Newaygo, so.
Sounds like it's working.
Yeah, it is, and it didn't hurt. I'm not gonna lie, so. You guys know I went to Saskatchewan again this year, and shot a beautiful Canadian whitetail up there again. So it didn't hurt having that, in my back pocket, and and helping to up my standards a little bit here in Michigan too. So
that's what I was just getting ready to ask. Do you think having that opportunity is helping you to maybe lay off certain age class bucks here in Michigan, or size, whatever you determine is what you want to shoot, if it's age class or size?
Right. I'm going to say without question, because it's actually kind of helped me mature even more as a hunter, as far as, I'm sitting in the Canadian bush and I have a 120-inch whitetail walk in, and that wasn't even, that wasn't what I was there for. And, it helps you when a 2-year-old whitetail walks in, or a 100-inch 8-point walks in Michigan. It just really helps you to go, okay, I'm not shooting that deer. And whereas I'm going to say 75% of Michigan hunters, if you put a 100-inch 8-point in front of them, they're going to be doing backflips.
Right. Well,
and that deer probably going to be taking a dirt sample. So
well, I had an instance 4 years ago, kind of when I really got into this deer management and understanding what it was required to get older deer, age class deer, and managing your force and all that stuff. And I really started diving in deep. And I had a friend of mine sit with me one evening, happened to be at camp, and we watched a mainframe 2.5-year-old 8-point just shred a tree. And make a scrape, and watched him for like 45 minutes. And he browsed in front of me 30 yards broadside. And the guy who was with me came unglued, because he's like, "You're not going to shoot that deer?" And I'm like, "No." It's just, that's my choice, because I know there's bigger deer on the property. And I pulled up a picture of a 4.5-year-old 10-point that I was hunting. I was like, "Here's why." I held it up and said, "Here you go." So, but you got to lead by example.
You're right, and you do, and this is case in point. So I'm at my mom and dad's right now, and my dad, 74 years old, and it took a minute for him to understand and for us to get it through. So the deer here is a 2-year-old 8 that he shot. It's a beautiful 8-point. Don't get me wrong, but it's a 2-year-old, and we're really trying to shoot 3-year-olds. So, and then. You guys might remember, this buck, and that's a buck we call B52.
Yep.
And, that's a Nuevo County buck, and we passed that deer up as a 2-year-old 8, and he blew. I mean, obviously his right side, or this side, didn't quite do as good as, the other side, but, it's a 129-inch 3-year-old.
Right.
And, now, and he's like, I mean, it was incredible when we found the deer. It was the coolest thing in the world, being able to share that with my dad. And, now he's going, okay, well, that's what we want to shoot.
Well, my dad's the same way. I mean, he's down in Alabama now, and they've got a lot more opportunity. They can actually take $5 a season down there, which is, to me, is kind of unheard of. But, and it's still, he's still that old school, and he understands why I'm doing what I do. And he appreciates it, but he says, I'm just not there. And I'm okay with that,
Sure.
It takes time, and some people don't get there, and that's fine too. But, I tell you what, let's go ahead and take our second break, because when we come back, I mean, we're talking deer hunting now. I kind of want to talk a little bit about where you guys are at with things here in Michigan with APRs, and I know there's some other things that we want to talk about as well. So let's step outside. Let's take our next break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. We'll be right back after this. Okay.
Anybody on the live feed, if you got any questions, Denny Steiner is joining us.
Hey, Denny, what's going on?
Mr. Giraffe Man himself.
That's right. Good to have you on tonight. So,
that giraffe in his showroom there is pretty impressive.
It is.
There's no doubt it's a very tall animal.
And it's short, actually.
I know, right?
Cut the legs off to get it in the room.
The giraffe is on my bucket list.
Well, talk to Denny.
Yeah.
Get a hold of Denny. He's been over there and knows how it's done. So
nice.
I'm sure he could point you in the right direction.
I don't know why I want to shoot one. I want to shoot a giraffe someday.
Yeah. I'd like to try it. I mean, we talk with Denny quite a bit about how they process the meat and everything, and nothing gets left behind. They use everything, but I'd like to try it.
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Stand by in 3, 2, and 1. Third segment of the show. Sitting here still talking with Lincoln. We're talking deer hunting. We're talking food plots, Packer Maxx. let's go ahead and open a can of worms, man. Let's dive into APRs, man.
All right.
Whether you're for them or against them, you got questions, throw them at us, and we'll put them right out here on the table. Oh, there's nothing to hide. Let's talk about it.
Right, exactly. And you know what, Lincoln Rohn, the forefather of the movement of APRs, he's the man on the front of the bow.
Right on.
I don't know about that.
So what's going on? I mean, where do we stand right now? I know there's some stuff going on in the thumb area. There's been talk of the CWD area.
Yep.
And kind of what's going on. It's been kind of quiet lately.
Yeah, so I'm actually not I'm the founder of Michigan Deer Hunters. Let them go and let them grow. But the guys up in Northwest 12 they're actually the ones that kind of started the whole push for antler point restrictions. And once they got them up there, then that's when we kind of kicked in and we really started to try to move the ball forward for for the balance of the state. So I can't take credit for anything that was done in Northwest 12 besides we started supporting them as soon as we heard about it. So and then just kind of started carrying a bucket of water after that. So and there's tons of people that have been helping and supporting along the way. So kudos to all those people and the help that that we get on a regular basis. So so the thumb proposal right now, there's a proposal in 5 counties in the thumb of Michigan for antler point restrictions. All the surveys are out for the process. And we should know, hopefully by end of April, if they garnered the 66% required in the survey process to actually have APRs implemented. And then at that point, then in May, the NRC, the Natural Resource Commission here in Michigan, would vote on that. So we're kind of in limbo at the moment to see what happens with that. Okay, if it doesn't pass, which I'm sure it's going to, but if on the off chance it doesn't pass, then we're going to have to step back and just take a look at the whole picture and go, okay, where do we go from here? If it does pass, then that kind of gives us our target moving forward. So, or if say we get it, they garner the support required, and then for whatever reason the Natural Resource Commission doesn't approve it, which is a possibility. Then that really is going to, make us kind of reevaluate where we need to go. So, so we're kind of waiting to see what happens there. There is a potential now after this past NRC meeting. I don't know exactly where that stands, but there was supposed to be last year. There was a resolution written for the 5 counties core area of CWD core area in Michigan. They were supposed to do a APR test in those 5 counties, and now all of a sudden, just to see what that affected, see if antler point restrictions indeed did affect doe harvest, lowering that overall density, deer density,
right,
and to see to make sure that hunters were staying engaged under lower densities, but still having that, better trophy potential or, better bucks on the landscape to help keep guys hunting.
Mm-hmm.
So, and along with some other stuff, some habitat improvements and, just kind of, there was a package deal put together. So now all of a sudden the department decides they want to split those 5 counties and they're going to do no APRs, nothing on both tags in one side, in 2 counties, or whatever the case may be, 2 or 3. And then the other side would be antler point restrictions. So then they would compare the data, which isn't what the resolution was supposed to read. The resolution is supposed to be antler point restrictions in those 5 counties. And so, and then they would get a handle on, how they affect the control of the overall population of deer and what effects it has on actual CWD, whether it helps to contain it or not. So they sent out surveys for that, and in my opinion, they should never have sent out surveys because this is a scientific study, and there should not be a survey process done on a survey on a scientific study. Either they're going to do it or they're not.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Why ask for a survey when you're asking to do a scientific study? That just doesn't make him. Yeah, okay, I agree with you on that one.
Well, when you said that last night, I think it was last night or night before last, when you did your live stream, that all of a sudden that just kind of clicked with me. I'm like, well, yeah, that does make sense. And it's like, why are they sending surveys out?
Right. It shouldn't make any difference what that what the hunter support is. It really shouldn't. And believe me, they've done enough surveys over the years. 2016, they surveyed 250,000 Michigan deer hunters, and well over the majority of Michigan deer hunters were okay with antler point restrictions. I believe it was like 58%. Statewide. So, they know their support for them. So why in the world? And again, it's a scientific study. There shouldn't be a survey done, but whatever. That's already water under the dam, and that kind of happened before we really even knew, what was happening. So
right. And I got to think too that it's just more money that's being kind of wasted. Yep. It could be used somewhere else as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And talking about, I know there's some meetings that's been going on. I've not been able to watch any of this stuff live. I kind of try to tune in as much as I can where I can, or listen to people talking about it. But has there been any talk about anything going on, like up in the area where I hunt, up in Alcona County, up in the middle of the TB zone? Is there anything new coming out of that area right now from them?
There's a lot of different ideas being spun up there. And the department does seem to be working with some of the stakeholders up there. Whether they're going to listen to heed their advice, I don't know, because I know one group's position that we talk to weekly is they want antler point restrictions back, and they had the hunter's choice up there for several years, and they pulled that. And, really just when things were starting to look really good and guys were going, okay, the TB zone, the leper colony, we call it, maybe it's not so bad hunting up there. Well, then they pulled the hunter's choice, and now the guys are going, okay, well, now it's just a kill fest again. They just want to shoot all the deer. They did this 20 years ago, hunter mindset. With a minute a hunter thinks you're going to start shooting all their deer, he's not going to shoot any more does.
Right.
It's not going to.
Ain't that the truth?
Well, and a couple weeks ago, we had Jay Gregory on, and we got into CWD discussion and talk along those lines of getting hunter participation. I mentioned on that show that I had the privilege of sitting in a small group session of I forget what they call themselves, but it's like a round table of hunters that work with the Indiana DNR officials down there, and they told them that their plan is to try to implement the same kind of CWD mindset as Michigan, their action plan, but they want hunter support. And it's like, if you come in and you scare the crap out of all the hunters that you're going to, because a lot of people do think that, whether they are or not, the fact is, the public perception is they're going to come in, they're going to slaughter the deer herd, whether they do or not. Okay. So when you get them to think that way, how are you going to get hunter participation to work with them?
You're not. You're not. And so what the department really needs to do is they need to start taking hunter mindset into consideration, and they need to understand the fact that, if, like I said, the second a hunter thinks you're going to kill all their deer, they're not going to shoot any does. They're not going to. Hunters want to be. They need to keep hunters engaged, and I kind of proposed this idea of an app. Everybody has a smartphone today. It'd take an app developer 15 minutes to build an app where, okay, it says, you could do it statewide, but, you shoot a deer, you scan it, you scan the barcode, you put in the information, and you send it, okay? You'd have real-time, up-to-the-minute harvest data that the department can use throughout the season. You'd have established harvest goals. So say Nuevo County, for instance, they want to shoot 5,000 does. Okay, well, every time a hunter shoots a doe and scans that tag, they're going to know exactly to the minute how many does have been shot. Okay, so guys, we're lagging a little bit here in Nuevo County. We've only shot 3,000 does, and it's November 24.
Step it up a little.
We need to step it up a little bit. Okay, hey, but if we don't have a goal, And if we don't know what the goal is, and if the mindset is just to kill all the deer, it's not going to work. So to have that accountability, and then hunters feel like they're engaged in this. Okay, we're part of this thing. You know, we can see it right in the front of our eyes. This is real-time information. You know, and then say we start getting close to 5,000, well, then maybe guys are going to taper back off the harvest a little bit, you know, you know, and not shoot too many. So, you know, we're really, really, really encouraging them to get an app set up. And if you don't have a smartphone, there's 20 people that have one around you. Sure. And, you know, if you don't have service at that point, you know, as soon as you scan it when you get home, or you scan it as soon as you get service, you know, whatever. Well, and so, you know, people don't trust the DNR. They don't trust them. They think they're full of crap, and they think that it's all money, you know, it's completely money generated. Well, and it might be to some degree, but this would help immensely with trust and transparency that hunters want.
You just took the word out. I was getting ready to say transparency. Yeah, that's huge. You know, I mean, you talk about how easy it is. We're running a poll right now on whether you're going to plant a food plot or not. I mean, I just type this in, bang, put it up there, and you know, it's 59% yes, 41% no. But that's real time, and that's interactive to people watching the show right now. And it's like, how easy is that? You know, shot of doe in this county, boom, it's done. Yep,
and you scan the tag, and it's, you know, it's a done deal, and it's just that quick. And then, you know, guys are so Michigan's survey system for harvest is extremely accurate. It's scientific. It works. However, by and large, if you ask 100 hunters if they trust that survey system, 75 of them are going to say no. Mm-hmm. They have no idea how many deer were shot. So in conjunction, they can still do their survey system, okay? And they can use the app system. So together, that would be, to me, it'd be the perfect storm. You'd have real-time information, you know, and if you don't comply with it, if you get caught with a deer that you didn't scan and enter, you get a freaking ticket.
That's
you know?
Right. You know,
it's a nice one. It's not a freaking, you know, $25 ticket. It's a $200 or whatever, $500. If you don't register your deer and you get caught, you're gonna pay.
Exactly. You know, and that's the thing about this transparency. And but I tell you what, we're gonna bump up on our last break, and I got to question you specifically about Newaygo County. So we'll step right out, and we'll be right back.
All right.
Okay, we'll save this one off. If anybody's got any questions, we'll give a shout out. Wayne Sitton's sitting back watching tonight. Wayne, thanks for tuning in.
Hey, Wayne, how you doing, man?
Appreciate you guys up there and the work you guys are doing in our area up there and helping out.
I love that family. The Sittons are such great people. They just are. I've been so blessed to be able to be, you know, be part of a couple of necropsies up there and talk to Wayne and Luke and they're just great people. It's pretty cool.
I learned so much from being at those events and others that they're involved with, and a lot of the guys that are, you know, Perry Wood's another one up there doing a lot of work up in the area. It's there's a lot of good work being done in Michigan, regardless of the fact of how bad we think it is.
Perry has to remind me every time I see him that I dragged him into this mess.
Right? All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Last segment of the show. Sitting here, we'll wrap up tonight talking a little bit more here with Lincoln. Danny's got a question and I got a question. So, Danny, go ahead.
Okay, so
all right.
How is Newaygo County doing after the CWD? Do you know the numbers up to date around what's going on there?
I honestly, I don't. Okay. I can tell you what I experienced throughout the season. Okay, and so for the core area, the new regulation package said you can shoot. It was Commissioner Tracy's brainchild. You can shoot any buck you want, 2 bucks, spike horns, 4 points, whatever you want. No restrictions on either tag, and you can shoot up to 10 does. That was part of the department's recommendation. Okay, so you can shoot 2 bucks, any kind, 10 does. All right. I never heard a gunshot opening morning of bow or gun season until 9 o'clock in the morning. It was probably the least amount of shooting that I've ever heard in 35 years of hunting up there.
Really?
Okay? And again, we weren't going to shoot any does because, again, hunter mindset, man. We figured everybody was going to just put the hammer down on these things. Well, guess what? I think everybody else thought that too. So nobody was shooting does. The 400 behind us, they actually bought 40 doe tags and burned them as a statement.
Wow.
I'm not kidding. And unfortunately they didn't realize that. Well, he still gave the department $40 or 40 or money for 40 tags, which is fine. But so I feel like it had just the opposite effect. We had tons of yearling bucks left over at the end of the season. I honestly think it had just the opposite effect. And we ended up shooting 3 does. We probably should have, if we'd had, time, probably should have shot more does. Because of the fact that, like I said, we were kind of in a wait and see attitude to see what, how this was going to play out. And we realized that guys weren't shooting does, so we ended up shooting 3 because, we needed to. So I don't know what the actual end count was. Now, I know that they did hit testing goals for CWD, their testing goals.
Okay.
So I know that they did hit that, but I don't know exactly where they ended up on harvest. So I'd be really surprised if doe harvest was way up. I mean, it could have been, but we just didn't see it where we were, northwest corner around Bitely. So, but again, I don't know. I haven't seen any of the actual numbers yet. So.
All right. Well, while we're talking in this CWD pool here, when we had Jay Gregory on talking with him a couple weeks back, he started talking about, we got into discussion a little bit about some of the deer farms, some of the deer growers, the cervid farms, and the people who have a vested stake in this and who have frankly had the finger pointed at them for a lot of CWD issues.
Yep.
And I asked him a question. I was like, well, because he mentioned some genetic testing, and he said something about, there's some talk out there about, a genotype that, or a gene, a certain gene or a marker, what have you, that is CWD resistant. And I know that actually you're closely tied to some people in that part of the industry. What have you heard? And do you think that maybe, and I asked him the same question, and I'll see what you guys say about it. If that's the case, are the people that's being blamed for a lot of, maybe right or wrong, of CWD and having it start in an area, do you think that those are the people maybe that's doing this research have an answer for us?
Well, so last summer, several of the deer farmers came to me, and one of my friends, Jim Rummer, he's the president of the Tip of the Met QDMA branch. So we and then one of our state legislators, Tristan Cole. We kind of all got into this, invited down to the Conquest Farm, to do a tour, to get a little more information on, deer farming industry. Now, I've never really been against deer farms, but I've never really had, I love big bucks, so
right.
Whatever.
Right.
And I cannot lie. So, so I've always loved that fact of it, but I've never really had an opinion either way. Hunting on them isn't for me probably, but maybe. So anyway, so we go tour Conquest Farms. I was blown away with this farm, and in the fact that, and then I toured. Kyle Eckert's farm up in Gaylord, is it BR2? Oh no, it's BR2, a buck or two ranch up in Gaylord, and then Legends Ranch is actually right around the corner from our property. It's 7-8 miles away. We were able to tour Legends this year, and I've absolutely been blown away by the quality of these facilities. And when you sit back and you look at all the money that they have invested in these properties, and you think one crow flies over, craps in their field, and drops, that's been eating on a CWD positive deer, their entire livelihood is gone. Mm-hmm. Millions of dollars of investment gone. The department will come in, they'll depopulate the entire pen until there ain't one deer left on it, and they're gone. They're done. Right. That's it. Shutter the doors. Close them up. So they have a huge stake in this, and I believe personally that it's going to be private money that's going to find a cure for CWD. And the testing that they're doing right now, or the ability that they have to breed bucks or deer that are resistant to CWD, and I can't remember the genotype. I think it was what the marker was. It was K, I think.
K sounds familiar. Yes.
Yeah. It doesn't matter at this point. But so my point is, and I've asked this question I was at the Deer Farmers Convention a couple weeks ago up in Mount Pleasant, and I asked. They had a huge conference on CWD. I said, why can't they introduce, so they find a deer in Jackson County that's positive, okay? Why can't they take some of these deer that they know are CWD resistant, tag them somehow, put an orange collar, orange vest on them, get them into that area, and let them start to breed, okay? Have some does in the area, let them start to breed and populate some CWD resistant deer in that area. Mm-hmm. Why can't we do that? And the guy said, well, we're probably decades away from that, if ever, because departments are so hell-bent against introducing farm-raised deer into the wild. So, I don't understand that. Why, if we have the technology and the science available to us, why can't we do this? I don't understand it. And they're selling straws of semen that are, one of the things is, okay, this has the K marker in it, and it's going to be CWD resistant. So, that just makes no sense to me why we couldn't do that. So, and then another thing, and Doug Roberts, he's the owner of Conquest. I was talking to him at the Deer Farmers Convention, and we were talking about this, and I said, well, the department wants to come in these where they find CWD positive deer, and they want to just really shoot a lot of deer in these areas. Okay, well, he said, well, wait a minute, that's not going to work. And I said, why? And he said, well, think about it. And I use our property in Newaygo as an example. So we have really good habitat, we have a good area. All of a sudden, just for instance, if they found a CWD positive deer and they shot all the deer in that area, guess what's going to happen? All the deer from the surrounding areas are going to move into that area because it's void of deer now.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's kind of funny you say that about not wanting to introduce something that could potentially change the dynamic
landscape
of the herd.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It would affect their money stream too, because they're getting millions of dollars from the federal government and from the state government to the department for testing and for all this other stuff. It's literally it's job security for those people.
All right.
So that's why I don't think that it's going to be a state or a state agency that's going to find a cure for it. It's going to be the private sector, and then good luck trying to get the state agencies.
Yeah. And actually, we just got something came in here. Actually, from Wayne, he's asking the question: how many wild deer have the resistant genome? Nobody is looking at how it's distributed in the wild, and maybe somebody knows, but that's something we need to look at. That's a good. That's a great point. We don't know, and maybe there is that gene, that resistant gene in the wild, and maybe Mother Nature is taking care of her own.
See, you know what? You just hit it right the nail on the head. What's one thing we learned about white-tailed deer? And kind of, Mother Nature knows how to adapt to itself, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So instead of getting into this and doing what maybe they're doing, maybe they should just leave it alone.
Yeah. Well, let me throw a cherry bomb out here. Mm-hmm. Danny and I have talked about this in the last couple of weeks, and I don't know. Don't hate on me, but I'm just going to ask this question. You just said a minute ago, talking about they're reluctant to introduce a pen-raised deer gene type out into the wild.
Yep.
Because it could change the landscape.
Yep.
Why? I'm just going to ask you. Why are we seeing CWD around universities?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, are we seeing something there that might be there? Or, I mean, there's been some word come out, and Danny and I really haven't quite figured out yet how to approach this subject.
Right.
But go out there and do some research on this and look and just where are some of the hotbeds of CWD popping up?
Right. yeah, I don't know.
It's a very interesting take on it. Once you start putting a couple dots together and you start realizing what they're trying to tell you, and it's like
they don't want to introduce something into the landscape, but something's been introduced to the landscape, right. and all of a sudden it's popping up. I'm just saying there's a correlation there. I'm not saying anybody's doing anything malicious, but I always say the things that make you go,
Yeah, and kind of back to the to the deer farm industry and them getting the bad rap. You know what? I think there's been a hell of a lot more, excuse my language, CWD distributed by hunters that have shot deer and transported them than any deer farm's ever going to spread. Right. I mean, a deer farm is contained, and they're shipping deer, but they're going into controlled environments. Whereas, you got Joe coming across Wisconsin from the hot zone with a buck in the back of his truck under his tarp. He comes into Michigan, and has a Euro mount done. Takes the brains and throw them in the back 40, and boom.
Right. Exactly.
So I think there's a lot more of that going on than actual the deer farmers. I mean, I'm sure that maybe there's who knows. And the problem is you get the good and the bad. You get the good guys that are or the bad guys are making the good guys. So
Absolutely.
It's just like hunters. We have bad hunters in the group, or in the mix. They make us all look bad. So
right. No, I agree,
but so it's a tough situation. Our stance, my stance, our stance is we want a regulation package that is going to allow us to lower deer densities, keep hunters engaged, have better quality animals on the landscape. Let's do habitat projects with stakeholders. Let's plant food plots. Let's do some, and we have a lot of farmers. Let's get some food plots planted in close proximity to farm fields, and up in the TB zone especially, and pull some of those deer away from the farm fields and into these secluded food plots where they're going to feed, and they're going to stay away from the farm fields. And if they do go to the farm fields, it's going to be less because they're already half full before they even go into the fields. So
and
farmers love that. They call them decoy fields up there. Perry is actually Perry Wood is actually one of his ideas.
Right.
We could do that statewide, and we'd have farmers doing backflips with us.
Well, like down in our area, we're south of Perry, and we're in the TB zone, right smack dab in the middle of it. But we're not near ag fields, but what happens in the winter, we're not allowed to supplemental feed. Our food plots are locked up or either decimated because of overpopulation, and our deer are leaving our area. You go up there right now, you don't see any deer because they've all migrated to where the food is, and that's the ag fields, just north of us. So what are we doing?
Well, there you've got all you've got all the thermal cover is being depleted. There, that's one of Wayne's big things up there is the thermal cover.
Absolutely.
It's
amazing, isn't it?
Right, and then they have all this data that the DNR has too, and they show that you can control. You can indeed manage a deer herd for a healthy deer herd with older age class bucks, with lower densities, and still control disease in those areas. And my big thing has been since day one on CWD core areas. They're garbage in my opinion, because we don't want this disease to spread. We want to, so if it's good for the core area, it should be good for the whole state.
You'd think,
right?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So okay, if this is going to control, why aren't we doing it here and here and here and here? Let's manage for better quality animals. Let's manage for lower densities. Keep these hunters engaged. Let's be transparent with our hunters. Let's get an app built that we can check our deer, and still do the survey. Still do that.
Right.
And everybody's happy. And you've got Mike, you just leased property in Indiana.
Yep.
I lease property in Illinois. I go to Saskatchewan now. I'm going again this year. I just locked it down with Cook's Outfitting.
We're leaving.
Right, we're leaving, and we shouldn't be.
I never thought I'd ever say that on this show. And
Right.
I'm not leaving. I mean, I'm still going to do work.
Right.
But the point is I know there's
Your
better.
focus is going to be somewhere else.
Bingo. Yep.
So,
And, you know,
exactly.
And that
exactly.
and that focus is part of all this whole thing. And
Right.
I'm just gonna say this, that you should start focusing on getting your food plots with Packer Maxx.
you should.
Yeah, actually.
And, and it comes down to that whole herd health thing.
Right,
Get
exactly.
your food plots in, get some summer plots going, and get some habitat work done, and let's be proactive and be part of the solution.
Absolutely.
And getting our deer herd healthy. And you know what? Don't shoot little bucks. It's the best way that you can shoot bigger bucks.
Yep. And make
simple as
sure you
that.
manage your doe herd.
And Lincoln,
Yep,
if anybody wants to find more information about Packer Maxx, where can they go?
Well, you're going to want to go to, I have a Facebook page, and we have Instagram, and also the website is www.packermax.com.
Okay.
And-
we got that link up right now. So people can
And
see.
I'm really proud to say that we've actually, you guys and myself have actually kind of come to a partnership, and I'm super excited about that. And you guys are going to be trying out the Packer Maxx this year, and seeing just absolutely firsthand how awesome a piece of equipment this thing is. And
I got
it's
some
an
cool
honor.
ideas for it, man. We're gonna do some work for you.
Yeah, it's an honor for me, to have some guys like you, believing in the product and wanting to use it. And you guys have been awesome through this whole APR thing and the supporting of our Michigan Deer Hunters Let 'em Go and Let 'em Go group, and now with Packer Maxx, and I'm excited about it. So
Oh, we are too, and I'm going to be heading down and do some work on the property. Probably second week of April. So Danny's, I think, going to try to get one from you here real quick, and I'm going to get it down there, and we're gonna get right in the dirt and get dirty with it. So
awesome, man, awesome! You're gonna love it. You really are. It's like I said, I wouldn't plant a food plot without it. We've actually did some testing on some no-till plantings last year. We went in and did some weed control, brush hogs, broadcast cereal grains and fertilizer, and then just went over it with the Packer Maxx like crazy. Pushed all that, that grass and weed bed down, and so it kind of protected the seed. We had a couple of great food plots that we never broke the soil on. So
Really?
that's another thing you could try in some small hidey hole plots where you can get in there. It really works well.
All right, now you just gave me an idea for one of my food plots that I got. That it's kind of, if I can't get to what I need to do to it, I just might do that then.
Yep. Yeah, and then you can also, I think Jared Van Hees came up with the idea to fill the Packer Maxx with water, and the big thing with EHD is getting some of these deer away from the water sources to drink out of pools.
right.
So he has a pool set up over his property where he can drive the Packer Maxx right up next to him. It holds approximately 40 gallons of water, and he's filling his watering tanks with the Packer Maxx. So,
Well,
I never thought about him.
That's kind of what I was thinking about.
Genius.
We're going to do some spraying, and we got to have water for the sprayer.
Yep.
And we've got a great water source, a creek. We got a good creek, good hard flowing creek nearby. So that, or we'll go up to the farm shed and fill up. Either way, and I can take the water back. Using the Packer Maxx and pump out of that tank. So
Yep. Yeah, it's a great idea.
just another way to utilize
Versatile.
a piece of equipment, and you got to think outside the box.
Yep, you do.
So.
You do, for sure. And equipment's not cheap these days, but as we talked about, this is a piece of equipment that is extremely useful. It's going to last you a long time. It's very durable. It's cross-linked polyethylene. It's one of the strongest polys out there. The shaft is actually molded right inside the drum, so that allows us to use bushings instead of bearings, which bearings and dirt don't mix. So by using bushings, it takes you 15 minutes to replace the bushings and $15, and they'll still, we're still on our original set of bushings after 7 years. So, it's a great alternative for a cultipacker. And
That's
it's geared
awesome.
towards food, towards the food plotters.
Well, before we go, I know you did want to make an announcement coming, I think, Monday. Am I right on that? You want to make an announcement here on the show?
Yeah, yep. We're starting. We have the Gamekeeper series, the HD. The standard unit is going to be. We're gonna teaming up with Killer Food Plots, and Killer Food Plots we're gonna have a Killer Food Plot series Packer Maxx. So pretty excited about that. And they're a great company. They're based here in Michigan, and yeah. So you're gonna see it. See the Packer Maxx on Killer Food Plots here coming up real soon.
That's awesome. I tell you what, we're going to wrap up the show here, but before we go, I do want to say, people who are planting food plots this season, 64%. So it swung back the other way. I mean, that's almost 2/3 of the people that's watching the show saying they're going to do food plots. So, go over to packermax.com, check it out, and get you one if you haven't got one already. And if you do got one, show them to your friends and let them see how good a product it is. So.
Yeah, and definitely, your feedback is really important to me. So if you do have one, please send me some feedback, and 99.9% of the feedback that I've received has been incredibly positive. And so I always appreciate that. If you have pictures of you using it, by all means, I'll take those and, put them up on the Facebook page or the Instagram page, and it's.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a great product.
And we'll have a link to Packer Maxx up on the website this week, so you can come to our website, link right over to Lincoln's page, and then check it out and get yourself one. Because finally the weather's breaking, and we're gonna eventually get to planting.
Finally. It was awesome. I was up at the property yesterday. We did a little shed hunting. Didn't find any because most of our property's underwater at the moment. But me and flooding, man. I was thinking about building an ark.
You're good at that flooding thing.
I haven't had a really good track record of flooding the last 12 months. So
You better start duck hunting.
He better no. I think he needs to carry a pair of water wings with him.
Yeah,
Right.
something, I tell you.
Right, duck hunting might be in my near future if stuff doesn't change.
All
Right.
I'll tell you what, we're going to wrap up the podcast portion of the show, folks, and we'll stay on for just a few minutes afterwards here if anybody in the live stream's got a question. So that'll do it for us this week, folks. We'll be back again next week.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, no problem. If you got a question, shoot it in real quick because we've got leagues to shoot, and it's going to be our last night. So for people on live stream, 7 o'clock next Sunday, and we'll be there. So anything on the live stream there real quick?
No, I think we're good.
We got some good comments from Wayne. You guys need to go over and check those out. So
Yeah, I was just going to say, Wayne has put up some good comments here, too. And
we gotta get him on the show.
absolutely.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You do. Him and Luke. Luke's an awesome guy too.
Yeah.
He's obviously Wayne's son, and he's a county police officer also up there, and he's a good dude. So Wayne. Like I said, it's been awesome to be able to call Wayne my friend. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a good time. And it's great having you on the show. Thanks for taking time out. We're going to go ahead and wrap up the live stream, folks. Lincoln,
thanks,
hang on 1 second, and we'll let you go, but we're going to wrap up now. And we'll be back again next week at 7 o'clock, not 4 o'clock. So 7 o'clock we'll be on. Y'all take care, and we'll be back again next week. Okay, give us 1 second here. We're going to stop the stream. As soon as it gets done feeding out here, it takes about 20 seconds. Just so we can wrap up a loose.